welcome you warmly, and even as I hand over to you now to do a quick review of your book, and then which will be followed with questions for you. Thank you. I hand over to you now.
Thank you so much for having me, Laterna Ventures. My book, some of many parts, but those who haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. It's a fictional memoir based on my life. And what I did with this book was to write a true life story, but fictionalize a lot of the characters in the book to make it more palatable, I dare say. I always say, people always ask me, a lot of people have read the book and I've asked how much of it is true, since I've said it's a fictional memoir. And I guess about 80% of the book is spot on. You know, so the book draws from my experience as a business owner, which most people know me as a fashion entrepreneur, as my profile clearly states. But behind the life of a business owner, behind the life of a successful fashion entrepreneur, is a mother, a friend, an employer of labor, a wife, and somebody who, like everybody else, is struggling to balance and to juggle, you know, everything that the adult life throws at us. So I think what I was trying to do with the book was to share my story in the hopes that it would also help other people identify with some of the struggles that I went through, to almost, you know, I'm trying to give the impression that, you know, to be a successful entrepreneur is not all that life is about for me. You know, there are other things that are going on in my life that are equally as important, if not more so. And those also make demands on my time. And like everybody else, you know, I'm forced to compromise. I'm forced to deal with some of the struggles that come with trying to juggle it all. There are a lot of colorful personalities in the book. Some are 100% real, some are fiction, some are several people, you know, put in one, you know, but all in all, most of the characters are relatable. You know, there's the character of a husband, my children, trying to manage bringing up children, manage some of the challenges that come with raising your children and trying to help them with their academics, the challenges of running a business. If you are in the business of fashion, you know that we have some peculiar challenges in there as well. And I try to relate that as well in the book. And of course, the challenges of even just relationships, managing, you know, relationships with your friends, people you're trying to support while also trying to support yourself. Generally, it's just a book I feel many people can relate with. It's a book that just tells the story of the girl next door who might have a big smile on her face and might win awards in business, might be known to be successful in the fashion label, but is quite literally struggling with everything else everyone is struggling with. And I'm hoping people will draw inspiration from my story. People will enjoy my humor, which I try to put through in the book as well. And people will be able to put a face to somebody who they may just consider to be, oh, this successful person, but she's just struggling with everything everyone is struggling with, like everybody else. And the end of the book, I'm hoping people would, you know, share some of my triumphs and joys, and would also draw inspiration for their own lives.
Okay. Are you through?
Yes, ma'am, I'm through. I'm hoping we'll have it. Since you've read the book, I'm hoping
yes.
we can talk about it.
Yes. I want to also say that if anyone has a question, you can just put it in the chat box. You can write your questions there, or you can raise your digital hand so that we can call you to speak or to read out your question, whichever one. So while we are, okay, I think there's some chats. Okay. So if you have any question, and just put it there on the chat box, or let me see your digital hand so that I can call you to speak. But meanwhile, like I said earlier on, yeah, I know it's a fiction, so we have fictional characters based on real life. But
Yes.
so we can say hi to the real Bella and the real Daniel. But I was saying that I was really taken with your book, because when I pick up a book to read, it might take me a week or 2 weeks. Maybe I read a chapter a day or so, but I read the book in 2 days. I mean, I was really attached to it. I was so impressed with the authenticity there, very authentic. I know it's a fiction, but I can see the authenticity there and bringing reality to the fore. That book really brings reality to the fore, because maybe because in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, I've had to go and teach and speak on balancing life, work,
Yes.
and ministry. So that's what I see in the book, to have that. And it's a struggle that most women go through. And I remember myself telling people that you can do a paid work on a 9 to 5, but then it's better that as a woman, try and be an entrepreneur if you want to have time for your children, to raise good children, because we have too many dysfunctional children around. So that really, the book really got me, and I really, I was really into it. And no holds barred. Experiential. But for me, it was like 100% experiential. So I was like, wow, I'm reading a real life story. That's how I felt. It's a fiction, but that's how I felt. I could really see that it's really talking about the struggles that you went through. And it's a book that can really encourage a lot of women that might be going through struggles now. So I'll ask you, when I was reading it, when I got to, I think chapter 13 or so, I was like, wow, is this a discrepancy you were talking about? Then I quickly saw that, it's part of your authenticity, just speaking it as you were feeling it, So you talk about, said, don't do it, except if your fear of remaining as you are far exceed your fear of failure. You said, except if not living your dream is like a life without oxygen. So I'm like, okay, I just wanted to ask you, I know that you're talking about the struggles that an entrepreneur goes through. I want to ask, how much do you think projects Nigeria, our situation in Nigeria, feed into the uncertainties of becoming an entrepreneur? Or is it the same all over particularly for SMEs? And if it is projects Nigeria, then maybe you need to talk to budding entrepreneurs that how can they go around it and still be able to thrive based on your own experience?
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm so happy you pointed out that particular excerpt in the book. Taking me back to when I decided to start my own business. That was actually trying to relate how I felt starting my own business almost 21 years ago. I was a banker, and this was at the time when being a banker was the trendy thing, was an aspirational career. And here I was, I got this banking job and I was thriving in it. But then there was this other thing that was nudging at me, this other thing that was giving me so much joy, and this other thing that was making me wake up, in the morning, and I wanted to do more of it. And I really, really was passionate about starting a fashion brand, but it didn't make sense at the time. It wasn't logical to leave a fashion business, to leave a banking career to start the business of fashion. But for me, it was the business of fashion, or starting a fashion label, was a lifeline. It gave me joy. And maybe in my naivety, now that I'm thinking back, I thought, let's go for it. Let's do it, And I put out my resignation and I started my business. So for me, those were the questions I asked. These were the internal questions I asked at the time. Can I afford not to do this? What does this thing mean to me? It wasn't enough that everybody else thought I was crazy. I had to live with myself. Thankfully, I was in a time in my life, age-wise, where I could still afford to make mistakes and bounce back. I dare say some people might find that decision a bit more difficult, maybe, at the stage they are in life. But at that time, the question for me was, I love this thing. I would regret not giving it a go. So that's why I said, if you don't do it, if it's not life for you, because it's hard. It is hard, and entrepreneurship being hard is not a Nigerian problem. Yes, Nigeria, we have our own peculiar hardness, but entrepreneurship is hard everywhere in the world. Starting something from nothing, by definition, is hard. trying to convince people to buy into whatever it is you're doing or selling or service you're rendering is hard. There's competition, there's life, there's policies. And when, of course, we look at the Nigerian environment, it's particularly difficult because it's not an enabling environment. There's no way you want to sugarcoat it. It is a difficult environment to do business in. But for me, it has to be a personal decision. When people glamorize entrepreneurship, I'm always very wary because they give the impression that you are your own boss, you're the captain of your ship, you know, all these flowery terms. But in reality, there's so many bosses. They are not really your own boss. Even your employers are your boss. Because as a small business, even if one of your employees doesn't show up, then you are not your own boss. You have to roll up your sleeve and do whatever it takes. So it is hard. So it has to come from a place of deep desire and resolve. It has to come from a place of determination and a place of feeling like, if I don't do this, I'm not living my life. You have to go distill it down to life, Otherwise, when you do hit those road bumps, and they are coming, when you do get to those points where, the challenges are overwhelming, and it will happen, particularly in Nigeria, and you hit those statistics that tell you that, at least most businesses, don't make it past their first year or their first 5 years. When those challenges come, you will have to make a decision as to whether it makes sense to continue with this or to retreat and find something, people consider more stable, but it's down to you. So that's why I put it that there's a caveat. I'm never the one to say, go and start a business because, you are talented. Talent will only take you so far. Or go and start a business in fashion because, somehow you know how to style. Your styling will only take you so far. Or go and start an event business because you like, organizing parties for your family members. That will only take you so far. Nigeria will reset your brain. So you will have to dig deep down into life questions like, is this what I want for my life? Is this how I want to live my life? If the answer is yes, and you're ready to do all it takes, then welcome. Come and join us.
I guess you are saying that you have to be ready to be, your risk appetite must be high. If you are risk averse, it becomes very challenging.
No, it's not for you. It's not for you. It's not a personality. I always say, entrepreneurship is not a personality type. It's not a gene. It's not a gene. It's a resolve. Because beyond starting the business, sustaining it is another kind of superpower that you have to gain, And so don't go into it just because you think it's something nice or something somehow you just want to tick this box. You've tried it out. Keep it as a side hustle if that's what you want to do, and keep your side, your 9 to 5, and that is in itself noble as well. It's fine. But if you want to do 110%, this is what you want to do full time. It's going to need some resolve.
You can say that again. I will say that if you have questions, please let me know. Just raise your hand. Somebody's echoing you. You are right. Nigeria will reset your brain. That is so true. And I must say that I love the way you use words in the book, the sense of humor in the book. I mean, I rather say that for me, I don't know about you, you look more like an author than a fashion entrepreneur, because I mean, I just love the way you put the book together. So in essence, the book is a 39 chapter book. There are 39 chapters in the book, short chapters, so it makes it easier to read, and it's a 233 page book. I want to encourage you to read the book, to get the book, and not just getting the book. You can also go to her website. You see some fantastic designs there on the website. Actually, when they are to look, I wanted to know more about the reviewer and the author. So there's some fantastic the jumpsuits and the dresses and everything. So I want to just encourage that. So you're an entrepreneur in the house. You can ask your questions because it's somebody that have gone through it. I mean, she's speaking experientially, not just theory. She's speaking about what she has gone through, and it's so important for us to be able to ask questions even at this stage. So if you have any question, I keep on repeating, just let me know. Raise your digital hand or put a chat there in the chat box, and I'll read it out. But meanwhile, I want to say that I'm taken by the fact that your winning business model was as a result of divine inspiration. I mean, this brings a spiritual dimension to entrepreneurship. And this is, I would like you to speak more on how being a person of faith has helped you to be successful, because somebody else might say that, oh no, just don't mix business with faith. I mean, go and do your research, do your strategy, your benchmarking, get the consultants, and then you begin to execute and you begin to implement. Just bring that. I mean, don't mix faith with, and just live your dream. So I just want you to talk a bit more on, because I can see. I mean, I was taken by how that winning business model came, to the fore. So to speak more on how being a person of faith have made you successful with Xclamation.
Oh, thank you so much. That means everything to me. I was chatting with a dear friend a few days ago who has just started her own entrepreneurial journey. Coincidentally, she also just left banking to start her business. And in chatting, there was something we concluded at the end of our conversation, that entrepreneurship is a faith walk. It's quite literally a faith walk. So if you're trying to practicalize the sermons that you hear in church, become a business person for 1 week. It will, 1 week is all you need. You will have to leave out the faith walk in your business. And for me, again, maybe because this wasn't just something I wanted to do as a means of earning a living. This was something I was truly deeply passionate about. And so something that I started feeling led to start, just considering my own personal walk with God. So when I did hit that point in the business, as you saw in the book, it was a cry of desperation. Like, this thing that I really truly believed in, I feel like it's slipping out of my hands. The demands it's making on me are more than I can bear. But if truly, you led me to do this, and it wasn't just some experiment, then you also have to be able to give me a strategy. Now, I will be the first to say that there is a place for consultants. There's a place for research. There's a place for mentors and for advice of people who are seasoned. And there are business principles that you cannot ignore if you want to run a successful business. But for me, there's also that sixth sense, which for me is my walk with God. I always say that Jesus is really the creative director at Xclamations more than anybody else. He's the one that can really give me the direction that the future will demand, because I can't see the future. So for me, the cry for help you saw in that book, there was nothing fictional about that one. That was 110% authentic, and I hope that came through. It was really a point I got to in the business where if God didn't show me another way, I would have to let this dream go. And I was ready to come to that logical conclusion that, what, I've given it a go, I've tried it out, I'm still young enough to, go back into corporate Nigeria if this thing doesn't work. But my heart's cry was, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. But I was at a point where if I didn't find another way of doing it, then I would have to let it go. So my faith and my business are intertwined. Till today, when I do hit those roadblocks, there are many more stories beyond those years that were captured in the book, where I have still hit more roadblocks, and I have gone back to God in desperation to say, what do we do? Where do we go? You know, and he has always, without fail, come through with a solution, with a strategy, with some divine intervention that has taken us through that that rough patch to the next season. So for sure, I recommend Jesus.
Thank you. Great
I
synergy.
recommend
Great
Jesus
synergy.
Yes, please.
Great synergy. Thank you. I just want to ask the healthy lifestyle, the exercises we pay, is it fictional or is it 100% real? The weight loss.
That was real. Oh my word. That was real. That was real in the sense that we did have the group. The names were fictionalized, but all the personalities were for real. Okay. We did have a coach. His name was also changed, but he was everything like I said in the book. So, and joining that group was pivotal for me. You know, there's something about having a group, and I know women, even men, everybody here, you know, the kind of inspiration you draw when you're in a group setting, whether it's a fitness group or a book club or a mastermind. You know, there's something about drawing from the experience of other people and the motivation that comes in the group setting. Incidentally, the fitness part of the book was one of my favorites to write. I thoroughly had, you know, it was like reliving those years. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm happy I'm bringing that up.
Yes, I really enjoy that. So making the fats to cry.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. And I know quite a number of people will be interested in that because, you know, with women generally, once you have a child, there's very likely of you adding some pounds and all that, and then shedding it because, I mean, you usually move from size 12 to 16, and then you begin to work at coming back. And then I want to also talk about, you know, eating healthy, because that is so important. And it takes a lot of discipline because sometimes people go on exercises, you know, do all the exercise, but then they don't cope their eating habits. And so as they're losing the fat in the gym, they're adding more, even in the kitchen, you know. So I would like you to talk about that because I looked at all the things you said you were eating. I'm like, wow, this is discipline, you know. So I'd like you to talk about that and encourage anyone on this platform this morning who's still struggling with eating healthy.
Yes, please. Yes, we're all on the journey. It's a lifelong journey, to be honest. I always say that, you know, abs are made in the kitchen. That's the truth. For me, you know, I was having this conversation with my husband a couple of days ago. I was saying that my fitness journey now has nothing to do with weight loss anymore. My exercise routine has nothing to do with weight loss anymore. It's more for my mind and my stamina, my strength. Even when I'm trying to start a new business strategy or trying to get ideas, the best thing I can do for myself is go on long walks. I promise you, by the time I'm back from my walk, I have several voice notes on my phone on what to do next. So the clarity that gives me, you know, and fitness, exercising in particular for me is more for my mind. If I can push past a point with my exercise, it gives me the mental fortitude to do some things that are equally as challenging in business or in life in general. So for me, that's the role of exercising. But if it is a weight loss goal, it's 100% in the kitchen. You know, 100% determined by what you eat. You know, and you have to realize that willpower will only take you so far when it comes to food. You know, sugar in itself is a drug. The more you eat, the more you crave. And it will be difficult if you are trying to work against that chemistry. You know, so what I suggest when it comes to dieting and with food and eating healthy is for us to set ourselves up for success. If you know you can't resist the sugary treats, then maybe you shouldn't be stocking them up in your house. So the determination comes first of all in Ebano before it comes up in the kitchen. When you get to Ebano and you're choosing between, you know, the biscuits or the apples, that is where the battle is won. You know, so I tease sometimes when I go to Ebano and I see any supermarket and I see people's carts, and I'm saying, this one, you're not yet serious. Or this one. Because even for me, I have the same challenges. It's a lifelong place, so there will be ups and there'll be downs.
Yes.
Sometimes, I buy bread and I say bread is my weakness, except I don't buy it. But if I buy it, I see it to the bitter end. So what I do is try not to buy it as often. The same goes for groundnuts. If I buy a bottle of groundnuts and I really like it, it will take me a lot of willpower not to eat it halfway before I've had my fill. But if I don't buy it at all, I'm not crazy enough to leave my house at 10 p.m. to drive to the supermarket to sort out the craving. So regarding food, I'll say, and with everything else in life, set yourself up for success, with your environment, as opposed to trying to will yourself, to do these things. You need that willpower on the entrepreneurial streets. That's where you need it.
Yeah.
Keep everything else simple.
What if you don't buy the granules and somebody else buys it for you, like your husband buys the granule, brings it to the house?
I see you're trying to play the blame game.
Okay, I'd like to ask entrepreneurs on the platform, you are not asking questions. I would like to, okay, I want to check. Okay, somebody says, congratulations, Tomi, it sounds a good read. Having also launched an SME in Lagos at a similar time, can you speak to governance issues you encountered along your journey and how you handled them to embed good governance? I had my own tough lessons, so this is something I feel passionate about and would love for you to share your own experiences.
Okay. Oh, it's not easy when you're trying to lead people. And like I said, the people problem is not just a Nigerian problem. Yes, we have our own peculiar challenges, but most of the books that have been written on the subject are not necessarily by Nigerian authors. So, it's a global problem. Leadership in itself is a global problem. But the first person I find that I have to lead is myself. And when I can do that relatively successfully, I find it's easier for people to follow. So with my business, what I try to do is to create the right environment. I think it is so important that you are deliberate about creating an environment that honors people, an environment that trains people just by default, an environment that gives people access to you, because particularly with our environment in Nigeria, you represent not just an employer to your team. You are a mentor, you are someone they draw inspiration from, there's someone they're aspiring to. So you have to give some kind of access to yourself so that they can draw from that. It's also very important for me not to create an environment that is toxic. So I don't tolerate people within my organization who try to intimidate their colleagues just because they are good at what they do. These are the little things that bring some toxicity into your environment, and you're wondering why that bleeds into everything else. So I always share this joke with mentees or people who ask me about how I run my business, because most of my team members have been with me, many of them 10 years, 15 years. And I talk about how we have a policy within my business where you are not allowed to name call. You are not allowed to insult your colleagues. If you are trying to put a point across, it has to be put across with respect. And we actually fine, if this does happen, there's actually a fine. So there was a lady within the team who had an issue with another member of the team, and it got really heated. And she brought out money, I think it was like maybe 100 naira. She said, "I'm sorry." She dropped it. "You are a bastard." "I will pay the fine." I have to say, she brought out the money, she paid the fine. But for me, so obviously she was, there were consequences for that. But for me, it was clear to me that we had to be deliberate about making sure you create this environment that honors people. And you'll be surprised what that does. within the organization, when you are constantly, making sure that the people within your team are trained, you are putting them in a situation where they can also make decisions, and by extension, make mistakes. You are commending people for making mistakes because they tried. So for instance, in my team, there are certain job descriptions that are risky. So I say, okay, you have to source for fabrics from a new vendor, for instance. I'm not in the country. And I say to them, you have to take the chance. You have to take the chance of finding this new vendor. You have to take the chance of the repercussions, because if you do get the wrong fabrics, for instance, there will be consequences, but you have tried and now you know better. I don't insult my staff in any way. You will never hear any derogatory word from my mouth, and that is also intentional. So for me, I think the big thing for me, I don't want to go into details because governance varies within different organizations, but the big thing that I think has sustained my business has been creating an environment that honors the people that work for me, making the environment enjoyable, allowing people, the courtesy of making mistakes. I think the big thing which I find with employers is we are so impatient. When people make mistakes, you go down on them so forcefully that, they become timid. And next time they are not even trying to make any kind of, take any kind of risks, and then you now wonder, why people cannot take initiative. They can't take initiative because the last time they took initiative, you almost cut off their heads. So for me, it's important that you create an environment that honors people. Know that just as much as we are looking for good employers, people are also looking for, we're looking for good employees, people are also desperately looking for good employers, and good employers are also scarce. So make yourself the kind of employer that draws the kind of employee that you're looking for. That has been, it's tough, of course. We know the challenges with the average graduates in Nigeria, but when you do find somebody that is halfway decent, you have to do your bit to create a space for them that, encourages them to do better.
Oh, thank you very much. When you were talking about this, you said the little thing. That's not the little, that's the big thing. As far as I'm concerned, it's the big thing because, I think it was maybe Warren Buffett that mentioned that the difference between a successful entrepreneur and an entrepreneur that's not successful is the people skills. So when you talk about environment, the climate, it goes a long way. Not having a toxic environment, these are soft skills that people ignore. And it makes a whole lot of difference. I dare say that this that you just mentioned is like the winning edge, the competitive edge in your business. I tell you honestly, because people don't really appreciate when people are happy working with you, they bring their A game to the table, and then they make you look good and you are successful. That's the big thing. Ensuring that, not a toxic environment, a positive environment that is productive, not a negative environment that's demotivating. That's just the difference. That's for me, on what you have said today, that's like hitting the nail on the head. I think there's another question here. I think there's another question here. Just how do you manage being a mother and a wife with being an entrepreneur, balancing it? It's coming. That's what
the whole book is about.
It's all about, yes.
Well, I would say that there is no formula, I dare say there's no formula, but there are seasons that make different demands on you. My children are older now, my children are young adults now. My son is going to be 20 in another week or so. So I'm not the kind of mother I am now. The kind of demands motherhood is making on me now is different from what it made on me during the years that I documented in the book. But I would say this for young moms who are usually the ones that seem to have this challenge of balancing. I would say make that your priority in that season. It's a short season if you look at it within the context of your life. But it makes a huge difference on the lives of your children. In fact, their entire lives, even on their adult lives. There's some regrets I have, even some that I documented in the book, where I felt the need to prioritize my business, rightly or wrongly. And I felt maybe I could have done better. And what I do now is anybody I find who is in that season where their children are a bit more needy, and you have to be there. I'm very hands-on. Your business could potentially suffer. You know, it's possible that your business may suffer and you may not grow in the leaps that you aspire to, or that you see that the rest of your colleagues or contemporaries are, but you have to be ready to pay that price. But I will also say that it's important to know that your children are also looking at you as a template for their lives. So it is not an excuse for you to shrink back and to use motherhood as a crutch or as an excuse not to aspire. That is also something I cannot tolerate. You know, your children are a blessing. They are not an excuse. So the game changer is finding the balance, finding how you can do the best for your children while not compromising on your personal aspirations, or understanding that there are seasons. You might not be running a business that has 20 branches when your children are under the age of 10, if you don't have the right support system, and that should be okay for that season. Your business is a growing concern, you know. So when that season comes in your life where you can make those kind of calls, then you can grab it. But there's never any business that is disadvantaged from patience, of digging deep, of doing small things well. So don't think that those seasons where you are focusing on your business at a small scale and doing the best you can, harnessing your creativity, you know, mastering your skills, those seasons are so important and building foundations for this conglomerate you might build in the future. So balancing business, balancing life, balancing motherhood and business, I would say let it skew to the side of motherhood at this time. You know, I don't think balance is quite possible. There's something always gives, you know, let the thing that suffers be the business, if anything has to suffer, you know, because that can bounce back. Where you are tempted to compare your life with other people, you know, try and resist that, because that's what usually causes the, you know, the challenges you feel in comparing yourself, that this person is doing better than you think you should. Resist the urge to compare. Face the season you are in right now. You know, when some people try and tell, oh, Tomi, how are you doing? You're writing book, you know, your business in the UK, your business here. I said, look, don't compare yourself with me. Oh. My children are adults, so you know, I have a bit more time in my hands right now. So we are in two different seasons. Don't compare. You know, I'm able to do some of these things now because I've built the foundations in those early years that allows me to now layer all these other things on it. But if you are in the season where your children are young, I would say do whatever you need to do to give your time and resources to the children, but don't use them as a crutch. You know, there are tools that help us multitask. So be a lifelong learner. Learn to use those tools that help you make the most out of your time as well. So that's what I would say. I'm team mommy. You know, I'm team mommy all the way.
Okay, somebody says prioritizing your children, wise words. Thank you for sharing, Tomi. And I would like to also ask, you know, because I'm in today's Nigeria and businesses all over the world, I dare say, you find betrayal coming in, you know. I'm like, how do you handle betrayal? I saw some in your book. I mean, I was wondering when I was reading, how did you let Clemens go and you retain Clemens and ask Rose to leave? And I was wondering that Clemens caused all the wahala. So how do you handle betrayal? Because it's bound to come, particularly in SMEs, you know. Small scale businesses. How do we handle betrayal?
Yes,
and how have you been able to handle betrayal?
Well, you saw some of it documented in the book, and some people argue that I didn't handle that very well. You know, I've had people ask me a lot about that particular decision that I made, and you know, just for clarity, that was also real. That also really happened. But I think you have to make decisions based on the situation that presents itself. Betrayal is tough, you know, because we're talking emotions here. But I think one thing that helps is focus. You need to focus on the goal. If you stay too long on that mountain, I guess, if you stay too long on that mountain, you begin to lose the big picture. So I would say that mourn whatever relationship may be lost from the betrayal, mourn it for a minute or two, and then try and move past it very quickly. You know, in the situation of Clemens and Rose, for instance, like I said, I had to make a business decision. It wasn't so much, like I said in the book, even at the time, I didn't know what I was going to do, and that was for real. But at some point, I had to wear the business hat. I hadn't done a good job at replacing Clemens at the time. You know, like I said, with small businesses, every expertise, every hire matters. And sometimes if you let a good hire go prematurely before filling that space, it could be detrimental to the business. So sometimes you have to swallow that pill, you have to humble yourself, you know, and decide, okay, for now, this is what I have to do. This is what I'll have to deal with, you know. But the big thing about betrayal is you will eventually have to grow a thick skin, you know, with age, with experience, you realize that everybody is selfishly trying to do things that will work for them. As human beings, we are selfish by nature. You know, you are constantly trying to do what will benefit you. And sometimes in doing that, you step on some toes. Some people will step on your toes in their own, you know, journey of trying to aspire, rightly or wrongly. So you have to look at things, almost be cerebral in that case. Say, look, this was a business decision. This person did this for whatever reason, has nothing really to do with me as a person. I have to move on from it. Don't mourn it too much and think, oh, it's about me, or they don't love me, you know, they don't care about me, and all of that. What you need to look at is the business health, the health of the business and the enterprise you're trying to build. You know, I always say to my team that the business is everything. You know, the business is what we need to focus on. The business might demand that you work in another department. It's not me. That's what the business demands. The business may demand that even though I like you, I need to let you go. You know, that's what the business demands. So as a business owner, you have to grow a thick skin. After some time, the word betrayal is not even something you use anymore. You just look at it for what it is, and you know you have to make a business decision. And the ability to move swiftly, to make that decision swiftly, move quickly from that mountain of betrayal, you know, and make the business decision, make a call for the business that will move it forward. I think is so important. That comes with time and with maturity and with age. So for me, you know, people have said I didn't make a good call there, but I knew that it was the best call for the business at that time.
I think you just spoke as an experienced entrepreneur of so many years, because now I get it. Yes. I mean, it's for the business, for the sake of the business.
Yes.
Okay. I think, is there any other question or comments? I still have, if there's no other question, and well, because of the time, I think we have to wrap it up now, because it's just 1 o'clock now. So thank you so very much. Tomi, Rotimi, we've had a good time with you. And,
thank you so much.
I want to encourage everyone, take the book, pick it up and read it. Apart from the fact that it's lighthearted, you have a good laugh, you enjoy yourself. It's also, I mean, you'll be getting a lot of knowledge in terms of experience from somebody who's had experience. if you want to start your own business, I mean, you
Yeah.
can, it's so real. That's something I like about the book. It's so authentic. So we bring realities to the fore, the challenges you will face, how you go about it. So it's not all bed of roses where I want to be an entrepreneur.
No.
There are bottlenecks, there are mountains to climb, and there are valleys to come out of. So I think it's very, I recommend it for every budding entrepreneur. Thank you so much, Tomi, Rotimi.